all set, thank you.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Orange Board of Finance. Today's Monday, March 7th. Call the meeting to order at 7:27, and we'll start by having everyone introduce themselves, beginning on my left with Kevin.
Kevin McNabola.
Joe Nuzzo.
Jim Leahy.
Ajit Jain.
Vince Scarpetti?
Mike Gray.
Christine Koch.
John Cifarelli.
Kevin Houlihan, thank you. Is there anyone on the number 3 public dialogue who wants to speak to anything on this matter, or are we just, my back's to everybody. And Bill, do you want to introduce your board?
Sure.
I'll throw with all the guests that are here. I'm facing the wrong way.
Mr. Crud, I'll be happy to do that, Mr. Crud, if you like.
Vince gave me a tough seat.
Let's see, we have Tatiana, Susan, Jeff, Ronette, Betty, and Ken Simon, and Carmen Rodriguez.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Okay, item 4, get right to it. Orange Board of Education budget presentation. Dr. Scarpetti. And thank you for having us here.
It's our pleasure, Mr. Houlihan, and I want to welcome the entire board. Mr. Kraut took part of the job that I wanted to do was introducing the Board of Ed. One part of the letter that's shared on the presentation, Mr. Leahy, if you could go on the next. Just to read one line, you know we all have faced an incredible challenge these past 2 years, but we strongly believe that this was help and represents a strong fiscal management while maintaining the best educational program for our students. Again, we never forget this happens because of our taxpayers, but it also happens because of the people behind you. You've indicated the Board of Ed. There's some board members that are not here. We want to acknowledge them too. The entire leadership team is here, but also our staff to make this happen. This budget process occurs in October and continues even up to this date and continues on. Here are the names of the people that we just shared. You could continue, Mr. Leahy. At every board meeting, I'm very proud that this is something that the board decides to do, is read the mission statement. This is a guiding force of what we need to follow. It's our compass, but it also indicates why we put our money where we put. I especially love that we believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. That's a goal of ours, and we only can do that together. You'll see that these goals, the 4 that we represent today, build and promote strong foundations, strengthen teaching and learning, engage students, and ensure safe and healthy environments. You'll see those correlated in our consolidated budget once we get there. And here's a bit of our enrollment history. You may recall last year, if you looked at fiscal year 2021, there's a pattern when we see, and again, with the exception of 14-15, I always joke and I tease Mr. Leahy that prior to my arrival, he noticed that enrollment numbers in every class would increase by 7 students. And I think he posed at the time, how do you guys know that 7 students? We didn't, it was a projection. That's when the Board of Finance asked that, project what you know about, tell us if something changes. So following that year 15-16, you will see when we presented to the Board of Finance those current numbers, but what the students actually were at the end of the year always increased, with the exception of 2021, when we were in the pandemic. Many of our families decided to keep their children at home. We predicted that those families would decide to return the children back, which they did so. And again, you see the pattern fall again of our predicting of how many students we have, but always increasing. Right now, we know that we'll have 1,200 students from grades kindergarten through grade 6. As stated in the letter, we are requesting a 3.67 increase from last year. What we'll notice in the consolidated budget are major drivers for increase. I will highlight once we go over the consolidated budget increases in salaries and benefits. utility software, curriculum software, repairs and maintenance, our permanent substitute teachers, staff, gas, heat, and electricity, and transportation and gasoline.
Vince, I want to make sure I'm at the same page as you. Is this
So we're at the red arrow down now.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a few slides prior. One down. Next one, Mr. Lane. Thanks. And you also see decreases in special education tuition and special education transportation. We do want to know that if families and people watching at home see a decrease in special education, it's not that our special education services are being cut. These are the specific reasons why you'll see a reduction in special education. Again, we will be requesting a 3.67 increase. We always like to note our contractual obligations that we're required to provide our staff is a 2.2%. And Mr. Leahy, if I could bother you for a second to go up 2 slides previously to the pie chart.
Sure.
And as you'll note and see, salary and benefits is the largest portion of our budget. It's something that we refer to as our human capital. We want to see our funds in the highest regard to our salary and benefits, because we can't be anything without our staff and support services for our students. And of course, we'll go into details, and that ends my report, Mr. Houlihan. Or not my report, but my budget presentation part.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we had agreed, Kevin, that there would be an order to the materials that Superintendent Cafeteria has provided, and do them in a certain order, right? Vince?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Leahy, typically we do the FTPTE,
Okay,
just a review of all our employees.
okay. So what we've done is we've consolidated the information into one file, has a series of tabs. So all members, I'm really speaking to the members of the board, just reminding us and everybody, really. So what we're going to do is the budget's over here, some descriptions which are useful to understand what there is. So I had that sitting there as well. But I think the next thing that the team wants to go through is this document here, and educate us as to
So
what we
the-
have in the budget.
This was something that was requested some years back, which we provided. Last year, it was suggested that we had descriptors of each of our staff. If you will please know, and again, this is something I will share once we get to the consolidated budget, and as in the PowerPoint presentation, you will see an increase in one classroom teacher, an increase in a technology specialist, an increase with aides that we need to support our students. But overall, this is how many staff that we have that are instructionally certified. And this, what you see in front of you, and then below is support staff underneath it.
So I don't know if we want to take this by section, Vince and team. But it's pretty clear, you can see the teachers, we're going to see this information also over on this tab here as well, so maybe, but just remind you, there should be a tie to those. One of the things in getting started on this, Vince, I'm seeing a lot of 1s and a 6, a 9 over here, and a total of 9.5. Could you educate me? Obviously, if we add all those up, we're not going to get either 9 or 9.5. So just, can you walk me through
Sure.
what we're looking
The
at?
administrators are central office and our building administrators, with the addition of our business manager, which is the 0.5. I think just the way the formula reads, Mr. Leahy, is that we couldn't do the 0.5 per se. So we just want to make sure we've truly represented of how many staff of our administration includes.
Okay, so what we have here is 5 for sure, right?
So each of our principals, Peck Place, Turkey Hill, Racebrook, MLT,
Okay, PTE,
that is our part-time, it's representative of 0.5.
okay. And
And
so that
then-
would be 4.5. To get to 9.5, I'd have to have 5 more, right? So I have 6 here, or is
Right.
there,
And so that's myself, Mr. Gray,
okay,
our Director of Business Operations.
Right,
Dr. Evelyn Russo, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Personnel.
okay,
Marito, our Director of Special Ed.
right,
Christine Koch, our Business Manager.
right,
And Matt Allring, our Director of IT.
okay. Any questions from our team, Board of Finance?
Nope.
How about the next section, anything to educate? Remember, this is an educational session as well, right?
Sure. Again, just the teachers that are provided, our full-time teachers, classroom teachers, it's broken down. Again, I know we provided a descriptors of each of these positions for you to look at if there's any specifics that you need.
Right there.
But again, this is just a breakdown at each of our schools of, again, certified staff.
Okay. And the totals are at the bottom, right? I wish I had Excel to do my unnecessary in that article, Joe.
And Mr. Lay, we will continue to see a bridge with the enrollment numbers that you shared, but also in the consolidated budget. You'll
Yeah.
see these numbers come up again.
You'll see these
and-
again,
yes.
so. All right. And the 98, is that any different? I have a slide. I didn't look at it yet, but I was just wondering, is that any different from last year?
Yes, there'll be one additional teacher that we've asked for.
Okay. All right, here's the support staff in the schools. Looks like that probably might be the best way to kind of sneak it in there. So you can see 75, and these are
Positions that.
full-times and part-times, right?
Correct. Again, these are our non-certified staff,
Okay,
and again, servicing from either cleaning our buildings to all the way supporting our certified staff and students.
so anybody who is in the payroll,
Correct.
okay? So you got 12 aides in the Mariel for the kindergarten with the 9 teachers, right?
Correct.
And you've got 24 part-time classroom people distributed across the 3 schools, right?
Mhm.
I'm just reading out loud,
Sure.
so anybody else can jump in. Custodial staff, security monitors, that's the people who checked me in at the door the other day type of guy?
That's true.
Okay. All right, and the 75 number, how does that compare to the last year? Yeah,
There are
and-
3 additional aides that we're requesting for to support student needs.
Okay, and where would they hit the skids on this, in this chart, Vince, you know? If I had done my job well, I would have had that information right next to it, so I apologize, I could have done better.
Part-time classroom,
Okay,
and then there, in addition, there's Tier 1 techs. There's an additional position we asked for that.
okay, and that would be a full-time basis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Team? Brigitte, Kev,
I'm good.
John, okay, great. I don't know if we have anything else in the
The
bottom of the
Tier 1
box?
tech fence, that's the IT person, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
What I'm going to share, Mr. Holohan, when we get to the consolidated budget, when we move to one-to-one devices, you're going to see some line items that it's increased. So say, for example, mileage has increased, there's more services that are needed, so our Tier 1 techs are going down to the buildings more often, but also just the need in general for our teachers, our students, or even our parents. We're asking and requesting for another Tier 1 tech.
Makes
All right, the
sense.
final section looks like a special ed section, full-time. Let's see, 58 distributed by the 5 categories there. You have a certain, I don't know, if right word is flavors, first 3 different types of special ed that seem to be distributed across the schools. You can see those numbers there. And a total here would be 65.
And just to make note, that's a reduction of 1 person from last year.
Okay, good. All right, so at this moment in time, have any questions?
So is that reduction, is that a retirement? That's not.
No, actually, it's a registered behavior technician. We were thinking that we would need one, and then looking at IEPs and services for students who receive special education, we found out that we didn't.
Okay. I'm just gonna save this so we don't lose anything. And let's see, the next thing we said we would go to, Vince, if I remember right, is enrollment, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Again, I'll try to find the right level so it can hit the screen so people can look at it, and also in the room. I know everybody has a copy. Where would you like to focus, Vince, perhaps?
I think I just want to point out that, again, we look at the needs of our students. Our class size policy does not specify a specific number. We have conversations with our building principals and look at individual classrooms. And we look at, without specifying classrooms per se, because we want to keep the confidentiality of our students. But just because a classroom doesn't have, just because a classroom has a specific number doesn't equate that we need an additional teacher or aides. What we look at those needs, for example, we may have a classroom of 20 students that we're not asking, or 21 students, where I think that begs the question, well, numbers are getting high, maybe we need to increase another teacher. We go beyond that, but then we could have a class of 16 students or 18 students, and we're asking for another teacher. But this specifically, we wanted to point out that additional classroom teacher we're asking is for the first grade. It aligns nicely, and again, allows us what we know and what we showed in that enrollment summary and the PowerPoint presentation. We could say for, I don't want to say certain, but I think you understand where I'm coming from, that we usually know that numbers increase. Where those students fall, we don't know, so it actually allows us, when students do enter our grade levels, there's space enough for us not to be concerned and add an additional teacher. Also, in our class size policy, it's indicated that the board will review numbers later in the year, May and in June, because there are some sections that we see that are around the 20 student per class. And of course, you want to keep an eye on that. Again, going back to conversations, at least that I've interacted with the Board of Finance, is asking of what we need, but also knowing how many students we currently have, and come back to us if there's a need, if you so see fit. So again, you will see in first grade, that's where we're adding a teacher in the first grade. And in addition to, if the board wants to take a moment to look at this, I'd like to have you scroll down in a moment to point something else out.
Sure.
One of the things that I think is at times forgotten, per se, is our preschool. So currently we have 3 preschool classrooms with an AM and PM. Those numbers fluctuate from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, but that's a part of our student population. I have in the past focused on kindergarten through grade 6. However, I do want the Board of Finance to know that there are other students that we serve, that also the budget supports not only with materials and supplies, but also with staff.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Leahy, if I may, right now we have 144 students enrolled in kindergarten, and we're projecting 150.
Right there, you had it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any questions at this moment in time on on this chart? I'm gonna have some questions or observations later, but, any from the team? Good, Kev? Eugene? Good. Okay, so the next one up is the budget document, so.
Yes, sir.
So if everybody, I know most have seen this, but I just brought this along because we'll be tonight looking after this section of our agenda, the Orange Board of Finance agenda. We'll be going into a budget session where we just talk about everything, right? We got to get this done by the end of the month. But what we do, and this is the town budget, so all the departments of the town all have very detailed Excel spreadsheets. And we spend a lot of time on this. We spend a full day on going through all this document. So what we're about to do, if you haven't seen us do it before, is on a collegial basis, go through line item by line item, the document that's been presented, developed by the Orange Board of Education, to present to us tonight. So it's not a new thing, nor is it different from what we do over here. And if you read in the Orangetown News, you know, we try to put a pretty good eye on Amity as well, okay? So we'll just leave it at that. So without further ado, I guess we're going to go through this document.
Yes, please.
Now, I know we want to see everything, but I'm thinking that we want to have it higher than this. Now, the way to get it higher than this is to hide a couple of columns. I'll try hiding 3. That way, we can give it a boost, as we say, right? And we can kind of see the germane stuff that we're talking about. Is that better? Okay, if that's better, then Vince, Mike, whomever, walk us through.
Sure.
We'll ask questions as we go and just, you know,
So looking at line items 101 through 105, that represents some of the largest piece of that pie, that visual image that we showed all of you about contractual, about that human capital. Also, as I've shared, but I want to highlight, 102 is where you would see the increase in 1 teacher. And line item 103 is the increase of IT support and those 3 additional aides I referenced.
okay.
Moving down to professional services, this is something that remains.
Kev, did you have a,
I just wanted to, the certified salary line, the increase of 221, that includes the teacher and the contractual increases? It's at
That's a
2.8.
part of it, Mr. Julian. There's other sections that will also include, so for example, our special ed staff, once we get to the special education, you'll see more staff there.
No, I saw that,
Yeah.
but just, okay. So the teacher is included in that
That one is,
221.
yes, sir.
It just seemed a little low,
No,
but,
that's,
okay. Thank you.
all right, good. So IT support, aid, and the, and other, IT support, I guess we could say 1 IT support, right? I'm just doing this so I can remember it when I go home, and when we'll save this as version 2, and so it's not the same as your version. But I
and
won't
section
change any
102,
numbers.
Ms. Flay, I don't know if you want to make a note, but that's the line item with the additional classroom teacher.
That was 102?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got that right over there.
Okay.
Good. So we'll call this the comment section. So we'll call it the 30722 comments. How about that? Because we can know what's underneath. Joe, keep it fair on that spelling here, will you? Violation. Okay.
The other line items from 106 all the way down remained the same, with the exception of something I noted earlier in my presentation, just to create that bridge of district travel. Again, we were seeing, with the increase of technology, our technology support service has to travel to schools more often, and so you'll see an increase with district travel. But other than that, on this first page,
Ballpark, team, the $100,000 increase that we see here in line 103, and I'll call 103 by this number over here. It'll be easier than whatever. How much of that is the aids? How much of that is the IT support? You have any, just bigger than a bread box estimate?
what do you mean, how much, what the cost
Yeah,
for
the
each
the
person?
incremental is,
The three-
the IT support cost about 60 and the aids cost about 40, or whatever it is. I'm just curious.
So the additional IT support, depending on the expertise
Yep.
of the person we hire, we put in, for I think, around $50,000.
Okay,
And again, this is something that we may have to review with the board, because actually we haven't had anyone apply for this position.
peace.
Even though we're asking for an additional position, we actually have that same position that's already in the budget currently open, but that's around 50.
Okay,
And I think the 40 each? 40 altogether? Okay, 40,000 altogether.
again, I just want to get a general
Sure.
sense of it, that's all. Thank you. So we'll just go down to, where I guess we're at 106. You said the next,
Yeah,
looks like
so
they're out the
again,
same.
all of the, like the remaining, and again, I just want to highlight on 112, again, the correlation about how the needs increase and how that impacts different needs about specifically technology. But audit and fee and service and fees, again, that's agreed upon procedures with Stewart and Mund. Our consulting fees ties in with our district benchmarking and consulting. Our legal fees, as you can see historically, we're requesting $65,000 for next year. We currently had 3 negotiations go on this past year. We're still in negotiations with one bargaining unit. We'll have one begin next year. Also, just as a point to note with legal fees, especially during COVID, there was an element, as many of you may know, that employees' rights with many things that came with extending FMLA. I'm trying to think of the acronyms, but, you know, it was emergency, what was it, Mike? It was the EPSLA. I'm trying to what the P stands for, but these things were implemented, which we had to adhere to, and needed support from our attorneys depending on what situation occurred with our employees. So you saw a little jump the past 2 years with legal fees.
Okay. So you got board expenses, okay.
Like I said, most of those remained flat with the exception, as I said, on 112. Some reductions occurred with printing.
District expenses. Okay, anybody got anything up to 118?
Yeah, so Mike, I just had a question on the certified salaries. So, my mic is on, there we go. It looks like the certified salaries for this year are actually gonna come under budget by about $325,000. This kind of goes back to Kevin's question before about having the teacher built in. So it looks like overall the increase is 2.8%, but if we take the increase from the anticipated forecasted actual for this year, it's really about a 7.2% increase.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're focusing in on right here.
Yep,
Nice catch.
yeah.
I mean,
So,
conceptually.
yeah, I mean, so 325,000 underrun for this year, I mean, that's roughly 4 positions potentially.
Part of that is from FMLAs this year.
Okay,
Because of COVID.
yep,
So we had some issues with that, which is something that Dr. Scarpetti was alluding to with the attorney's fees as well.
gotcha.
So there is some favorability there this year.
Okay.
Due to that.
Okay,
Is your mic on? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't.
Okay, no, okay.
Yeah, I just leave mine on, try to be quiet. But that's a good catch, because that really says from actuals to budget, you really got 528 and 19, right? Almost 547,000, which would double, more than double that percentage increase, right? Which would make this 7 point, yeah. You want to think about that. Okay. We're not looking for resolution on any of this stuff tonight, right? We're just talking, right? Okay, so we're, let's see, Kevin, we were down on district expenses last call, up to 118 then? Okay, and we have hidden something here in the middle. Okay, so you have a 3.1 on total admin, all right? And that's 360,000, and you had in the total of your increase, right?
Just stick to the spreadsheet.
I just want to see what percentage it is, Kev. Oh, that's right, I could bound by the bottom, you're right. Curriculum development.
So you'll notice under this category, we have some decreases. For example, testing assessments. We usually review the assessments that we provide to students and see if we still need to use them. There was a reduction in that. Curriculum office, there was an increase. Again, we look forward to providing professional learning and getting ready for that. It was again, challenging this year to provide and have the curriculum office prepare for professional learning in the environment we were in. So we're looking to get back to that and providing those resources for our teachers and staff. One thing that I would like to know, and at the same time, express their gratitude for the Board of Finance and supporting us with capital funding. You will see line item 127.
Curriculum software?
Yes, sir. So again, one of the elements that, again, still making that bridge about technology, the need, the resources. We're all living in a society that we're relying more on technology. Software increases. We're always doing our best to negotiate the best price with software. But one of the reasons why you see such an increase is this was something that was supported by the Board of Finance.
Yeah, we removed that section last year and put it in our budget. That's why that's really a phantom increase.
Oh, there it is there. Oh, yeah, funded by capital last year. I was
Yeah.
wondering why that didn't pop up for us, Mike. I'm sitting here looking, didn't we put that in there? I know it's there.
Kev, was that the Munis software?
John, was that part of Munis, or was that something else we pulled out?
I'm not sure about
There
that.
was a
Christine,
curriculum piece of this particular line is not Munis, there was a curriculum piece.
There was
in-
two.
Yeah.
Well, there's more than two.
Yeah, Munis was in district.
So we can pull that out from our last year's.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was, this little gizmo here was when we got together, I don't know, a couple days ago, Friday, and we were talking about what we were looking at here, and Vince and Mike surfaced it, and so I put a comment in. Why that comment doesn't automatically show when you put your Excel thing up there, I don't know, but that's why that little gizmo is there. Is that a possibility for this year, Kevin? Thank you.
Mr. Julian, if you're looking at specifically of what we paid for that, we'll be more than happy to provide that to yourself and the rest of the board.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just like, you did that last year and do that. Especially when you get to like any hardware items too, is we approved the HVAC for this building, John? Last week, because of the supply problems. So if there's certain things, we might want to act at our next meeting to get it, to make sure that it is here by the time it's needed. Instead of waiting till, like I know that with the HVAC, we were told if we waited until the formal budget passed in May, you wouldn't have the equipment to install before school opened up again in September, so.
Correct.
We'll,
So we already took that action, right?
Yeah,
we
we
took that
2 weeks
action,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But if there's other things, but we'll,
And then we appreciate Mr. Leahy's time the other day. But there's other line items that the town support us through the Board of Finance that we'll highlight too as we continue.
That's excellent.
great, thanks.
Good process. I don't know how to make this thing go away, but it's with us for a while. So, anything from the team on curriculum department?
Yeah, can you please tell us more about this curriculum software? What is it?
Sure. So there's a variety of software programs that we use that serve in many different ways. It could be a reading program, math. There's quite a few. Each of our students has now a one-to-one device. That didn't occur prior to COVID. So more software is needed, and it's accessible to our students right in front of them. And so there's licensing that happens. And what I'll do, Dr. Jane, is last year, the Board of Finance asked by them supporting the software, what those were. We'll also share that with you, and you could have the whole list of what is included in that software.
Thank you.
I'm wondering when I hear this one-on-one device, is this something that a kid would put in his bag and take home?
No, sir.
Okay.
We, the only time that we allow that is when we went to remote learning.
Okay.
We try to avoid that only because of the damaging that
Oh,
may
yeah,
cause.
I bet, sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, next category, instructional, other.
So I want to highlight a few things to the board in this category. One is interns and substitute and teachers. Currently, we have 9 interns, and I know the Board of Finance, specifically Mr. Leahy, I believe, has a statement doing more with less. Interns are very supportive to us. Not only are they providing a resource if a teacher is out, but it's reciprocated because then they intern with that a specific teacher. That is cost of a service, depending on what school we use, as a strategy that we use in order to get that service, but at a lower cost, is really start off with a school that is at a lower cost. So for example, if we have a student from Quinnipiac, that costs $9,000 for each student.
Okay.
However, if we go to somewhere like Sacred Heart, it's $14,500. Again, that payment, it goes directly to the school and helps the student, but also as a service to us. And so what we do our best, we're not always successful, but we try to start off with Quinnipiac first, where our principals interview these teachers, see if they're the right fit for our school system, and do that. So, for example, Quinnipiac, we have 6 interns, and Sacred Heart, we have 3.
So what are we assuming in the requested budget column for the 164,000? That's different from the 108,000 that we budgeted for last year. Right? Last year.
What line are you looking
Yeah,
at?
he went from the interns to the permanent substitutes.
Yeah, I'm
Oh, I'm
down
sorry.
here, sorry.
No, it's not.
So the district permanent substitutes, that is something different. Again, this was brought up last year.
Right.
I think a question was posed to the from the Board of Finances, complimenting how the district handled COVID and the pandemic, and why were we one of few districts that were able to open. One of the things that was a huge piece was the district permanent subs. We've always had a challenge with substitutes. There was a time where Personnel Policy and Transportation Subcommittee, along with with Dr. Russo, we were looking at Kelly Services. It was not cost effective. The decision we made and that we implemented is to hire a district permanent subs. We're going to continue with that process.
So if you have 8, how many do you have this year for the 108,000? Thank you, Kevin, for clarifying what I should have known. The 8 FTEs is for the 164, is that what I'm saying?
I'm sorry, Mr. Leahy?
The yellow here. Currently, we have 108,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking for 164. So help us understand what's changing. Have we gone from 5 to 8?
No, it's actually the same number, but as the Board of Finance may recall, we've received funds. It's called ARP-ESSER, American
Okay.
Relief Plan. So we were
Yeah.
able to support that line item with those funds. So
Okay.
we've always had 8. We want to continue with 8. As Mr. Gray said a moment ago with Mr. McNabola saying, hey, why is there a big difference of, the money you're saving? Many people went on FMLA. I think about 12 or 13 of our teachers went on FMLA this year. And it's a trickle-down effect. When a teacher goes out, we need to provide a full-time sub for them. Typically, that's the district permanent sub. But then when a teacher's out, we need to rely on our substitutes. So this has worked well. As you may recall, some districts had to close, not because they weren't willing to open, but because they didn't have enough staff, because many people were contracting COVID and, of course, left opening. So we are going to continue with this.
Okay. So you really have to fill a funding gap there for the difference between the 108 and the 164, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
Same number of people?
Yep.
Roger. Okay, so I assume some of these aids are what we talked about earlier, or maybe not, since the budget's the same, actually.
Same budget, yeah.
So the aids that we reference, these are substitute aids. The aids that we reference are we add additional 3. That was on that first page, Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. Anybody else ready to go to textbooks, team? That software things, is that software taking the place of like how teachers teach in the room? I'm trying to imagine teaching with the software.
I wouldn't say it's in taking place, but I think for me, Mr. Leahy, it's, just imagine a bunch of tools that you have.
Yeah,
You just rely on certain tools, and when things advance and increase in order to make you more effective, these are tools and resources that administration and teachers could use to pull out of their bag of tricks, so to speak, but their tool bag in order to support.
all right. When I come visit the next time in November or something, when you do that
That'd be great.
again.
We'll love to have you.
The line meter just went off.
And Mr. Leahy reminds me, we've always extended an invitation to the Board of Finance to put these numbers live in action with our staff and students. Please, we extend that to all of you.
This is one that when you print it, it's hard to see.
I
Okay?
have a quick observation on FMLA, just very quick. Did
Make sure
anybody,
your mic's on.
oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
On the FMLA we just talked about, did anybody who drafted that legislation ever think that by having absences, it would not create additional expenses to businesses, education? Did anybody ever think about that? And there you go, right there, it's a perfect example. It's real money. So the 0.5% should cover all that, I guess, cover all of our paychecks. I don't know if that's gonna
It
happen.
was some tricky times, quite honestly.
So,
No, I've heard some bad things about
Yeah,
that in
not
terms
good.
of like, they've already spent, whatever, and I have some people working a, like 60 to 100, person thing, and the stories are just,
crazy.
you
The job has to get done somehow.
know, there's good and evil in the world. I don't know.
So
God
with
bless.
textbooks and supplies, all schools that next category. Just as a reminder, this is the consolidated elements of all our schools. So again, part of the budget process is each principal produce their own budget for their individual schools. They would meet with Mike, Christine, and myself, and they would have to defend their budget. And again, there's a fluidity to this. One of the things that I want to note specifically is you will see an increase on classroom supplies. One thing that's been noted and was asked by the board for us to look at is information and feedback that parents gave is what supplies they were asked to buy. Now, technically, we are a public school. We are supposed to provide every materials to our students, being a public school. But we wanted to streamline that, and so this provided a less burden to our parents. And so now students are receiving any supplies that they need. So you may remember, even when we were children, what's the school supply list? So markers, pencils, folders, so forth. That's given, and it's been streamlined at each school. Otherwise, I know this has come up before too about line item 144, science supplies. So again, the district provides the kits, meaning the science kits, but now the materials have to be provided each year. It's not something that needs to occur every year, but like say, for example, the erosion activity where sand's needed and where they use water, that sand needs to be replaced. So there, you'll see an ebb and flow with regarding materials to be provided. Again, this year you will see we had enough on hand, and there was a reduction in that line item overall in all our schools.
Line 148, I'll call it the Kevin McNabola comment. I mean, it's the type of comment that you just said, Kevin, right? I mean, you budget in 10.4, you're saying end of the year, we'll be under 8, but next year we need 11, right? It kind of is counterintuitive. Now, it may be that the art teacher was out, the kids weren't really using the stuff. I mean, I'm just asking you to just consider this is what we do, this is what we've been doing, you know what we do with Amity, and try to make sure, I think the whole board is trying to do more with less. I think that's what we do at home. I see no reason why not to do it with public money.
Yeah, and just to let you know, and we totally understand where the Board of Finance is coming, we appreciate those questions. We don't only look at this year, we also look at previous years. So even in some of those line items, if you're looking at.
Yeah, the 14 actual there, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes it's actually gone over.
Okay.
And so sometimes we do, as you know, a budget could be an estimate and at times a best guess depending on what that line is as a predictor. And so sometimes we average what we see and looking at the historical data prior years.
Okay. Big section coming up in terms of, it's all one page in the handout that we provided to the Orange Board of Finance team. And we'll not be able to get it on the screen all at once shot, so why don't we take the pieces that we can see. The major ones are the first three.
So
150.
as indicated, line items 151 through all the way to 157, that is that big pie chart piece. So again, that's why I mentioned on that first page, there's a special ed piece that ties into our contractual obligations. And as noted in the PowerPoint, we want to make sure that when they see a decrease, and as you see, there's an overall decrease in our special ed budget, that has nothing to do with services, that has to do with our transportation and tuition. And you will see line items 173 and 175 show a tremendous decrease with that. As you may know, students that receive special education, they have a PPT, that's a planning and placement team. Out of there comes an IEP, an individualized education plan with goals and objectives. And those needs may change. There's something called LRE, least restrictive environment, and our goal is to do whatever we can with support services here, and sometimes even hire additional support services. So I forgot which board member asked, but about RBTs, that's a position that is out there to assist us in order to avoid consultation fees, and then allowing students to be outplaced. However, at times, we may not be able to provide those resources, and that may be a student that arrives tomorrow. Thus, this line item could change tomorrow. But with the work of either if a student transitions to Amity, that line item may decrease, or it may be that student's returning back to our school system, or lastly, that student may be leaving our school system to go to another district if they've moved.
Vince, since you brought up the 173 and 175, I see the ratio of the two reductions are pretty much consistent from a percentage basis, at 33% and 39%. I guess I have a question in the anticipated year-end column, the white column here, H. And just help me understand, I see the budget's gone from 75 to 50. But did we miss budget since we're actually figuring we need 120? Do you know what's going on there?
You're looking at line item 175, right, Mr. Lee?
Oh, 173. Do you see where the special ed outplacement transportation?
I just wanna
173.
Yep, I see it. I just want to see if there's a correlation with 175, because as you indicated, there's usually a correlation. So if we received a student where we're not able to meet their needs, there's an outplaced, and I'm just trying to see if there's a correlation, which I do see. For example, if you're looking at the approval budget of 21-22, column H,
Right.
so it's 306, and now we are projecting 346. And
Right.
coincidentally,
So it went up 40 grand. This one almost,
right, but coincidentally, so again, what I would presume
Yep.
is that we may have received a student during the year, and like I just gave an example, we could receive one tomorrow, that they have an IEP, which we have to follow, and if there's an outplacement, we would have to adhere to that. So I don't know the specific of if.
I'm just
if that
asking you to look at it, that's
Yep.
all. I'm noticing numbers. You're dealing with reality, right? I mean, I know reality good too, but not when I'm not in the building dealing with these kids. I mean, I used to teach, but that doesn't count. I just wanted to see what I see. How about in the rest of the section on special education here?
Just one other line I might want to highlight, software and technology, you will see a decrease.
And
which
what
is
line item is that, Vince?
That's 165.
Thank you. Okay, significant decrease in percentage basis.
Right, so this is where the state actually has helped us out here. So I referenced an IEP, Individualized Education Plan. We usually had a software called IEP Direct, which is the software where an IEP was written on. The state is now providing that software at a decrease. The only service fees that we have to pay are for some data charges, and that represented that significant decrease.
How about the first three lines? Tie it back to what you had already highlighted in your PowerPoint, but we were looking at it in the staffing as well. There's probably some increased staffing here that we might need a reminder on.
There was, I believe the staffing remains the same again. Some things may change throughout the year. Again, I referenced that IEP. So if there's not enough service hours to provide, so just imagine a student, and it's a service hour means that if we have a variety of students, and I think currently right now, we have 114 students that receive services with special education. That was in the beginning of October. That may have increased right now. You may have specific needs, Mr. Leahy, that may require 10 hours a week. Another student may come in here and they may need 25 hours a week. We have a certain amount of staff to do that. That's where scheduling becomes very important. However, again, if we receive a new student and we cannot meet those needs, that's where increases may occur. But with this specific, those three line items, as Mr. McNabola asked, the 153 is actually a reduction,
Right.
Which was noted on that FTE PTE.
Right, that's what I was trying to hear you say.
Yep.
Okay. And the
And the-
aides went up, I believe.
Aides, now again, in our district, a paraprofessional is under the category of support staff that provides support with our children who receive special services. The other aides could be a general aid, so that could be providing services in our kindergarten classrooms. Does not specify special, or students receiving special education in math and writing.
What are the percentages next to the names, right over in the corner there? You see that, 88.6, 83.1, I'm just curious.
I believe that's the percentage allocated to this general operating budget. I believe the remaining percentage, if you take the 88.6 minus 100, you come up with 11.4. I think that is allocated to grants, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Good question. I was going to ask the same thing.
This represents just what it is.
Put your mic down.
Kevin, the answer man. Oh, wow. Am I the only one that goes near that A thing and everything gets capitalized or? Says- All right, so it's 100% minus that stated percentage grants. Huh. Okay. Joe, anything else? Ajit, Kev?
I'm good.
Two Kevs? Two Kevs for the price of one. All right, technology.
As we shared in a previous category, there was support that the town, through all of you, provided last year. Again, our thanks and gratitude. You'll see line item 181 and 182 with significant increases. That's the reason why this was, again, funded by the capital fund that you provided last year for us.
Okay. So this thing is all new, the web hosting?
No, it's not new. It was provided by supporting, so you'll see, and again, I actually missed a line item. It's 181, 182, 187, and 186 were the Board of Finance provided that support. And so you'll see increases because of that. And again, to Dr. Jane's question about the software, what is that about? Again, software is an integral part of our organization. Again, we'll be more than happy to provide the specific software in 187 when we provide it also for curriculum software.
So, John, is this something we did on the capital?
Yes, we pulled items that we considered capital out of both the town and the board ed budget last year, and we paid for it out of the capital fund.
Oh, wait a minute.
If you go back into our budget document
Yeah.
that we handed out at the budget hearing, under capital, the items are listed. I don't have that.
Oh, no, I remember, I just didn't remember
I
which
think
one.
there was about.
I know we were looking for 'em,
250
that's for
I
sure.
think there was about 250,000
Yeah,
worth
that's
of
not,
Board of Ed.
yeah. I didn't remember
Yeah,
that
it was
much, but
243.
it was not a little bit, I know that.
And Mr. Leahy, while you're making notes, just to not interrupt your train of thought, but again, it's line items 181, 182, 186, 187, and while you're making notes, even though we're not in that category yet, it's also 189, school security and safety.
Roger that. That's quite a percentage that I see there, huh? You don't see a lot of those going around. Okay.
So as we continue, again, we provide uniforms for our security monitors.
Oh, hold on. District utility software.
That was Munis.
Oh, thank you. Why don't we just, whoa, what happened? Is this linked to something? Oh, my God, this is linked to something. Look what's up there. I'm not doing that. Can you get out of this softly? Okay. All right, I'll just put this above is Munis. Okay. 1980. Number one, 1987 is Munis. How about that? Okay. All right. Let's see where we are. Health services, we have a bunch of small ones here, Vince, right?
Yeah, that's remained consistent. Again, some decreases, 192, again, as it says, it's health supplies that are for a nurse's office, that decreased a little bit.
Okay,
CPR classes are typically in the 193 line item,
yeah.
but remaining the same.
I'm sure this isn't like Amity, right? They have the buses come in and they got like 3 people on each bus in the morning, right? Everybody's getting their parents driving in, or they drive themselves. That's not happening with our kids, right?
Our buses are pretty full.
Yeah, I would think
Again, when COVID first started, we requested if families could, and they actually responded extremely well if they could drive their students to school. Why was that? Because we wanted to provide social distancing as best as we can.
Yeah.
But we're back, and buses are pretty full.
No, I was just curious, thank you. Gasoline, I hate to ask.
Yeah, we even go there.
Anyway, got it.
May not have enough.
Roger that.
Again,
That's
just-
part of our, have we already done the contract for the next year? What did we get, John? I'm curious.
I think right now, our current contract is $1.75 for gas, and I think it's like $2.06 in the new contract.
For next year?
Yeah,
And that's July 1 to June, end of June?
yeah. The
Okay.
problem will be in December of this year when we go out to bid, if
Yeah.
it's like what it is now.
Or they can try to break the current contract.
I don't know. Hang on to your gasoline hats.
Who do we have, John? Who do we utilize currently?
Is it dime? It might be both, dime and standard. One might be diesel and one might be the oil and gasoline. It's pretty much the same group all
Yeah.
the time.
That doesn't, well, the numbers you're quoting, if we're going down to what, 175 to 212? So that's 1/7? Yeah, that's about right,
good.
13%. Okay. School visits,
So that's simply when our students transitions
yeah,
to their new school. So again, MLT to their corresponding home schools, Racebrook, Peck, Turkey Hill, when they visit Amity Middle School.
oh, okay. Something on facilities and building ops.
Again, I know there's a little bit of a theme that I think all have heard about, finding staffing no matter what we do. That has also impacted our school system. We have posted and have not received any substitutes for our custodians. And so what occurs is the custodians fill in for each other. So again, if I'm a day custodian and night custodian's out for whatever reason, a day off, being sick, I will work that evening, and of course, I'll get overtime if I reach over 40 hours. So, you'll see a slight increase that we're preparing for of an additional 2,000 in line item 203.
Okay,
The building operations has remained consistent through the years, so you won't see any increases or decreases there. Line item 211. That was a budget cut, so I believe we were responsible for that. So again, as the Board of Finance was very generous, but I know you asked us to look to cut $100,000, so we cut those funds from our building repairs with schools. And again, buildings are old, and again, they need TLC, and so we continue to provide that support to our schools, and that's why you see an increase from last year where we cut it in order to,
so what goes into that 211 line item? Is it labor, is it materials, what is it?
Yeah, it's all the above. So it's all the repairs, the maintenance is also in there, so any
Oh,
maintenance.
custodial staff wouldn't do it?
No, this is anything outside of the scope of what they do.
Mike, why don't you give an
So-
example what had just occurred at MLT down at the dome?
Yeah, so for instance, we had down in the boiler room here at MLT, we had a couple of lead pipes from our boilers were leaking. Copper was very old and it was corroded, so we had to have that repaired by a boiler company. And that's what types of items hit this. We just had a piece of equipment in one of our kitchens fail, unfortunately, and it's quite expensive. That's something that would hit this line item.
You've made
So-
it come to life for me, so tell me how you made your
What you
estimate.
see, and I also want to see, because I think Mr. McNamara made the point, and I think this is happening in a few of the line items where we were estimating the anticipated when we first started this budget process. So I think some of these anticipateds, we put at the budget that we already have rather than going over. But some of these are definitely going over, and I will say that this building repair this year will most likely go quite a bit over what you see there.
On
that we
the
had
85.
budgeted. Yeah.
Okay.
So, for instance, that piece of equipment I just mentioned that one of our cafeterias lost the other day, the early quotes I'm getting are $20,000 to $25,000 for the piece of equipment. That's
So,
without
Mike,
labor.
answer me this then, you sounds like this is right up your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Just how did you come up with the estimate for next year then of 145?
So one of the things that we've done as a Board of Ed is put together a long-range plan, and to be able to do that, you had to go around and look at all of the types of equipment we have in district, look at
Right.
the ages of them, the maintenance schedules of them, and as you're doing that, you're noticing what things need some urgent repair. Something that was reported to the Capital Planning Committee.
Right.
I
Yeah, I
think you
remember.
were,
Yeah, it sounds
were
very
the
similar.
sixth grade floors at Racebrook School that are in need of repair.
Okay.
That's something that would fall under this if it's not
All
picked
right,
up
so
by
you
capital.
went around, you figured out your top where and some kind of cutoff.
Right.
Kevin, do we need specifics to identify things for capital or just categories of need? In other
No,
words-
we would want specific, instead of just like repairs, we don't want to do
Right,
that.
that's why I was getting, do we have a list?
You know, if we had refrigeration
submitted.
equipment, stove, whatever, those things, then, yeah, then we move that over, but just to,
So this could maybe not be a category in that capital,
some of it,
yeah.
sure, if there was specific
we may
things
need
that
to
you knew
talk,
you
right,
had to fix, and that, you know, it's,
Yeah, and we could definitely look at it, especially since we do have a long-range plan, but some of these items, we don't know what will occur. Mike, if you could also bring to life, just the example of the strategies we're using, especially we're focusing on ventilation, the changing of our filters, and now the impact that occurred with the motors, because if you could just
Yep,
bring that
yep,
to light
sure.
to the board too.
So one of the things we did at the onset of the pandemic was a recommendation from the Department of Public Health was to address your HVAC system. So one of the very first things we did was we had all of our ductwork cleaned. Once we did that, it was then tackling our univent systems in each classroom. A univentilator is your heating system in the classroom, and it also brings in the fresh air from outside. So in that, you have filters, and you need to change those filters. So the recommendation was to change them every 3 months as opposed to every 6 months. So we've been changing them every 3 months, and again, through the support of the Board of Finance, we received some money to help us do that. But what's also happening is, they call it the COVID protocol. So your univents used to run, let's say, on occupancy. So someone walks in the classroom, your univent goes on. Once someone's out of the classroom and it's not occupied for a certain amount of time, it goes off. Well, now we're running it prior to anybody coming in the building to flush all the air in the classroom, and then it's remaining on beyond the school day. So even when the custodians leave at 9 o'clock, those are all staying on. And what's ending up happening is these univents, a lot of them are about 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old. The motors are starting to go because they're running so much more than they have in the past.
I hear that point, but what about the point, don't they automatically shut off?
They still do, but they're running, rather than, let's say they were running 10 hours a day, they're running 17, 18 hours a day.
But you do have the automatic shut off.
They do,
But you're just saying they're wearing out.
exactly.
Roger.
So that's an unexpected expense that we've had this year especially. We're seeing that. We're
But
going
that
through a
could be
few.
an identified one, it sounds to me.
And the other issue with that is at the beginning of the year, we were getting these motors for about $250 to $300. They're over $500 now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and they're getting harder to find, and, so.
And Jim, to Mike's point, if you look at the prior year actuals, the 2-year actuals prior to that, they averaged right around $200,000 for that line item.
Right.
And he's only budgeting 145, so. I know it's a big jump from what you budgeted, from 85 to 145, but
Right.
the 145 is probably
But
more
we've been-
realistic.
We've been pumping in,
Yeah,
Right.
Rear end support on top of the 85, the board,
yep.
capital, out of capital. So it's a little bit of a great observation. We don't know, have the all data, but the more specific it can be, right? The more John and Kevin can, or we, but it's really up to the leadership on specifics that really help, get it into a capital mix, because it makes a difference to us, what's capital or could be capital, what's budget, right? Yeah. Because budget goes into taxes.
Right.
All right. I don't know if we're in the home stretch or not. Plant, I guess about the same, right?
Yes, sir.
Utilities, who knows in the real couple of years' future, but
Again, as we've all faced the rate increases of line item 216 and 218, you'll see those increases.
now, are they tied to our rates, John, that we have electricity-wide for the town, or no?
We're locked in until December, I believe, November or December on the current 3-year contract.
For electricity?
for
How about for
electricity.
gas heat?
No, that's at market. You don't do gas heat the same way you do electricity. We did have a contract with an outside broker for gas heat, and it was a contract that beat us out of money. So when that ended, we didn't renew it. The problem with gas heat, it fluctuates, and in the winter it goes up because of pipeline problems
yeah.
getting it to the northeast.
Okay, so we're seeing a couple of large increases here that lead to a utilities for 64,000, bringing this category, which is a, high teens increase, bringing the total facilities also a high teens increase, 129,000. Before we get off this page, we only have one more page to go, team.
Jim, let me say one other thing about the electricity. If you look at the electricity bill, the major part of it really isn't the electrical charge, which is locked in. The major part is the distribution, and that's what's really going up.
That's the Eversource piece, right?
UI piece.
Yeah.
in this
UI
area.
piece.
Look at your home bill. Your
Oh, no, I mean, it was the
electrical-
biggest trick
your
they ever did
electrical
is when they
part is
split it
little.
into
It's
two.
the
Now they had two ways,
distribution part.
two bites at the apple as a company. It was, I get smart for the company, but I'm not so smart in the effect on consumers. Anyway, last call on this section, team?
Yeah, the only question I had was on transportation, which I think might have been on the section before.
Which number is it, Kev?
It's 195,
Thank you.
regular transportation.
Yep.
So if you take a look at column D, which is the 20 actual, you got a pretty big jump from 740,000 to 793 in 21 actual versus 20 actual. Is that just a case of maybe just adding another bus contractor, another route? Because that looks about a 7.1% increase. And then you go from 21 to 22, it's only a 2.6% increase. So it looks like somewhere along the line, maybe an extra contractor got added in due to an increased route potentially. Just trying to figure out the difference.
But there is a 3% increase annually. and
Yeah,
what
right.
might have gotten missed is that 3% increase in the budget, but you see the actual was,
Oh, could you turn your mic on? I'm sorry.
oh, sorry.
And just point it a little bit closer to you.
Sorry, can you, yep.
Yeah, just
There's
pull
a
it down.
3% annual increase in the transportation contract.
Right.
So it will go up 3% every year. And then, in addition, there's some repairs and things in there that we account for the buses, the radios,
Okay.
certain things that break.
Yeah, so maybe in that 1 year,
budget
that
as
was
well.
just an anomaly, because if you look at the next 2 years, it's 2.6, and then it looks like your request for next year is 3.3, so.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what that outlier was, yeah.
Okay.
Take a look
You
at
good, Kev?
I'm good.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Well, then I'll just scroll right down to this last section. You have a bunch of blank space there a little bit. I think we can see the whole last section. Insurance compensation, about a dozen items there, 9 of them perhaps. Looks like health
So
insurance.
you'll see
went down.
that increases in general liability insurance of 63,720, Social Security and Medicare, but you'll also see a significant decrease in our health insurance. Again, with our health insurance decreasing 122,000, what I believe our people are saying is because of COVID, there was a lot of elected surgeries that weren't performed, and that impacted the calculation of what we would have to pay as a self-insured organization with health insurance. We'll see, and again, probably expect that to increase, but that has a huge effect in this section of the budget.
John, there was something one year that when we were going over the budget, that something wasn't incorporated here that had to do with health. I just want to make sure
Right.
that.
That was when Christine first started. She didn't get in the employee's
So I'm just
copay. and that's
working as a
now.
team. All I'm saying, we
That's in
got the
there
right
now.
approach this year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And this is probably a phantom decrease
I
because
would-
the fund balance has been built up in the self-insured fund, and so we get a reduced rate, so next year.
Hey, next year,
It'll be-
when we do the budget, it'll probably going up. You've seen that already in Amity. I think they had a $1 million surplus last year, and in the new budget, they're looking for $1 million increase
More,
more.
yeah.
Hey, we're lucky.
But it's good news for this
Well,
year.
For this year, we're lucky, put it that way, but I wouldn't anticipate this being a negative next year.
No.
The only Let me just speak to the general liability. You probably have the computer insurance on that?
Yeah.
Okay, we've been, as I said at our all-day meeting,
Cyber?
our cyber insurance is going up probably from $20,000 to $100,000 if we could even get it. So that, we split that 50/50, so that's probably
A good piece.
portion of their increase there.
John, who's your insurance carrier? Is it Seeger?
Seeger.
Okay.
So, working men's comp, John, you seem to know a lot about that. I don't know if you get involved with OBOE insurance, working men's comp, but see, I'm seeing 17,000 going up, but Mike, maybe this is one of these, we took a stab at the anticipated year actuals, back in December or something.
Those are estimates, Jim, from our insurance broker on what the policies are gonna be when they're written. That's only an estimate right now. We won't actually get the numbers until sometime in June.
Okay, the 185. So our working men's comp insurance is following
Those
the
are-
same guidance that this one is.
Right.
Roger.
Those workman comp insurance rates are all based on claims, just like health insurance. And we've had some big claims on both sides
Okay.
this year.
And I'd like to point out the cafeteria subsidy. We always operate unfavorably with our cafeteria. We've improved over the years. Again, having a district with 4 schools, that means staffing that needs to be at each school, as Mike indicated about materials and things that break down. This year, all our students, if they elect to have lunch, that's reimbursed to us. So that has helped us out tremendously, and even though that is a cost, quite honestly, the $60,000, that's not that bad when we've looked over historically what we've had to pay in the past.
You also saw it tonight when we're going over the audit, that we're carrying a deficit that we've been in the fund balance for the cafeteria of about $70,000, and that's been there since before I came on board and before Dr. Scarpetti, I believe.
And that's what this is?
If they didn't throw this 60,000 in.
It would be 130?
It would be more increased every year, yes.
Cafeterias don't make money, Jim, typically. Sometimes not even at the high school level. They don't even make money. Depends. It's a tough business model.
Yeah, Roger, but, at some point,
You have to feed the kids,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And
there is no
And we're
choice.
asking all taxpayers to do so,
It's
right?
the law.
No, I understand that, but, I heard them say they were paying something out of their own pocket. I heard the same argument a minute ago about, sounded like paper and pens. I mean,
I know, and I wasn't here at this time, Mr. Leahy, but I believe they outsourced it to a food service company, and I think when they tried that, to actually put that burden and responsibility on them, I guess they said, we don't want to, they were unsuccessful too. And so, I wasn't here, I can't speak to the specifics, but I do believe the district has looked at it and has made attempts in order to improve upon it.
Okay, so we're at the bottom of the bus here, and now we can see clearly that, and Kevin, your point about actuals, whatever, but it's this number here that we're talking about was last year's budget, and it's this number here that's this year's budget, and so that's the increase, and that's the percentage. So if our goal was to go through to understand, provide some commentary for leadership, I think we may have well accomplished that. We've talked about capital items that we might be able to handle differently than necessarily in a budget, which would still provide the items and lower the budget percentages, increases in amounts, right?
If we took the two
And,
softwares out that we did last year, they're at 265. If we were consistent.
I'm going to save this as version 2, V2, right?
Yeah, apples to apples.
All right, and so whatever my terrible misspellings, Joe, and everything else, I do have a couple of thoughts I'd like to share. I don't want to, I'm ready to do it, but I don't want to, I put together some slides. Probably take 5 to 8 minutes to go through. I think those who were here last year probably would say, oh, yeah, I think I saw that before.
Anybody have any other questions for Dr. Scarpetti or Mike on the budget document? Thanks for that.
No? Good job, guys. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So this is a combination of things. It's stuff that, oh, you're going to take a break, Kev?
No, I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
I'm taking a break.
We have certain types of breaks. Oh, thank you, Joe. You're my spell check tonight. That sounds like background day or from a different situation. Well, this is going to give me an opportunity to go to 2002. It's in the Wayback Machine. Remember Rocky and the squirrel and the Wayback Machine? Marky and Bullwinkle. Exactly right. Oh, this is closed current tab. Rocky and Bullwinkle it is, yeah. There it is. I think that's not right. Vince, this is a slide I was talking about earlier. Let me see if I can get this not to do that. Duplicate slideshow, there. This is the slides I was talking about earlier. I was trying to figure out, I had already gone back. It actually looks like to me, from what you presented last year, Vince, so I'm not saying the 90s, you said that it went up by 1. God bless, it may have been up by 3. I don't know. But I'm just going back, I went back to last year's slides, okay, and grabbed that. We've already talked about this, so when we get to the going through these slides, we just buzz right through those.
Yeah, I think with that, Mr. Leahy, with regards to that, so I mentioned that when we look at the class size policy,
Yeah.
the numbers that we share with the Board of Finance every month about how it
Oh,
increases.
yeah, I got them.
Yeah, so we share that. What occurred after the budget is that we actually, from our own, is that there was a increase in 2 of our sections.
Right.
So I apologize, that was in my mind because that
No.
was for last year. But from when we established those additional 2, there's only 1 additional teacher from last year to this year. Does that make sense?
I don't even know if it was a classroom teacher. I just know that it was
Okay,
a
I thought I
number.
saw,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You know the numbers well
Yeah.
enough than I do. Okay, Kev, you back? Good. Here, this is for
I
everybody.
didn't want you to wait for me.
No, well, yeah, it's just the
I've
kind of
seen
guy
this.
I am. I can't spell worth a darn, but I can, I can wait. Okay, so just some thoughts, right? Couple of background information, want everybody to remember, particularly folks at home, that we do spend well over 63%, probably more than 2/3 of our money in education in the town of Orange. This is not last year's, it was a year, but they're pretty representative, and it's the slide I had, to be honest with you. There's a quote there from Kevin, who couldn't be with us tonight. It probably was in an article I did last spring that was in the Orangetown News. But so I'm just showing it just so that we can see that we too believe, obviously, that education is important. But we have to consider all parts of our budget in preparation, our schools, our capital, and our town department. So I just, kind of want to mention that. And you mentioned buildings. Like, Mike, you were talking about needing to fix some stuff, and we understand that. But a lot of the things that it fixes for town buildings are not in the education budget, that it's handled by the town. So I just wanted to mention that. We hear it from Amity a lot. Well, we have to put our buildings in that thing and the debt for those buildings and all that. So, Kevin was kind to give me a quote point in time, or talked loud enough so I heard him and I wrote it down. So I just wanted to remind ourselves of these facts. Want to also remind everybody, when you look, and John, this is a slide you create every year for the town budget hearing that I used in the last year, that our growth is primarily in two areas. Our growth in the overall budget, as you can see, is in employee benefits, number one, by the yellow number one, and the other one is clearly education. So not only is it something that's 2/3 of what we spend our money on, our taxes on, all of it, but it's the most growing of the categories themselves, all right? So I think it speaks volumes to that, all right? Now, I know I came here in 1983 because of the town, the proximity, and my wife said, oh, the schools are real good. And Bill, I know in the late 80s, you mentioned Bill Kraut, the chairman of the Orange Board of Education, said the exact same thing, right? And I think people still do, all right? So I just wanted to mention this so everybody can be working off the same page. I asked Vince and I asked Jen Byers up at Amity for data so that we would know, everybody could know, what the contract with the Orange Teachers League, I believe it's called, and another typo there, Joe, 22-23 on the fiscal year in the orange box. The violations all over the place tonight. But the average salary is what it is, $82,792, 118 staff or thereabouts. I may have, if I got any errors up there are mine, not anybody else's. And I tried to look through and see what kind of sick leave, personal, funeral, or, bereavement policy. I would have wrote bereavement, but it didn't fit before I had to put the colon. For the standard 186-day work year. And the above details of this, and this file will be online in a matter of weeks. We're putting all our files up there these days soon, is available for others. But that data up there is not the most recent contract. I believe you had another contract that you have negotiated, right? So too, there are administrators at both the Orange BOE and at Amity, and the average salaries are what they are. There is something in your contract or the prior contract that talked about some administrative, it wasn't all of them at any rate. But I got the data, 152,823, 9.5 staff, and again, sick days, personal vacation, that kind of thing. All right, so that everybody would know, right? This is the data, all right? Similarly, but Amity, a little bit different contract. Again, in the lower left, you can see the average 81,190. I think that's for the current year. At first, I was informed it was for next year's, but it's actually the current year. But this does not include a lot of extra, oh my gosh, let me remind my brain, whether you're a department head, a team leader, a content leader, and any extracurricular activities, that's over and above, all right? Also, it does not include extended work hours or extended work days for either counselors, media specialists, or school psychologists. I just grabbed that right out of the contract. All right, so I don't know what amounts that is. But again, for Amity, it's a 185-day work year, and that's the data. All right, so too, for administrators, I was able to get specifics. I think this was in the New Haven Register, actually, and by name rather than by title. But that's the data that was available there. There is a stipend of $2,000 if you have a PhD, EDD, and the average is what it is for 14 staff over at Amity. And again, your leave is right in the contract. So many sick days, so many personal days, so many family passing days, and so many vacation days, right out of the contract. All right, so wanted to make sure, not just this group, but everybody watching on OGAT or wherever on YouTube had that information. This is the exact same thing we just went through. I did some research on it myself. It pretty clearly has small variability across the schools, I would say. I don't see that as a major deal. And this was the information, Vince, I mentioned that I put into slides, but we have already talked about in great detail. Whether it's last year, the administrators and instructional staff, or this year, administrators or instructional staff, or all of the other things that were on that Excel document that we already went through. So I see no reason, Joe, to continue to work it. All right, what I have is 3 observations, similar to what I shared in the past. But from my vantage point, I came to Orange in 1983. I still love watching the little children over here out in the, I don't know if people have been here for, there used to be a play area out there. There was big, heavy wood. Has anybody been here that long? You've been here that long?
I remember when it was built, when we built it, it was a town thing.
It was a very good town thing. So good of a town thing that when my kids were here and they were 4 and 5, they're in their mid-30s now, all right? I would be chasing them through that thing, right? And I went through, it was about 8:45 at night, and I went through and slammed my head right there, all right? And I mean, I had black eyes both sides, and I could barely drive home, right? And I went right next door to Bud and Marilyn Welch, my next door neighbors, and I couldn't see. It was amazing. So I remember the old one, so I'm really happy they have a real nice one out there now, and I love watching the kids. It's great seeing kids. But going back to my observations, people have been coming to Orange for 4 decades or more, for sure, right? Maybe 200 years, because of the community and the school system and its proximity. So I just want to say, it's been going on for a while. I'd like to remind us all that the end goal of educating students is the output at the end of the rainbow, the K through 12 process, right? We want to optimize the end objective. We're not trying to optimize grade 4, okay? And sometimes I think we forget this, and as human beings and parents of little children, particularly your first one, oh, my daughter, right? So I just want to remind us, and just like I have to remind myself when they were little, right? And the last thing I want to mention is class size has varied over the years. And even though this has happened, the students of Orange have always achieved well. I happen to think it's as much the input as the class size. That's happen to be my opinion. The community we have, the type of involvement, how many volunteer things we have, the vibrancy of this community. I think that's the secret sauce of Orange, myself, okay? Now, this was done a while back. It's hard to read, so I'll kind of guide you through it. And Joe, I don't know if you can read it at all. But this was done, a benchmark study done by the superintendent back in the day, not that long ago, all right, less than 10 years ago. And what you see in the orange up there, is you have the average, the DIRG, right? The DIRG average of K was that number, the DIRG average of grade 2 was that number, the DIRG average of grade 5 was this number. And when you look at the cities, when you go, here we are in Orange, at that moment in time, we were pretty good. And we had Orange in 2 years, 2 different years. And we had Orange in grade 2, top of the list. And we had Orange in grade 5, pretty close to top of the list. That's what I see. Now, you might be surprised to see some of the names that are down near the bottom of the list. You know, you're seeing things like Ridgefield and Darien and Simsbury, you know, making it through with class sizes higher, all right? Right over here on the right. So when you're looking at, it isn't just class size, okay? That's all I'm trying to say. So I think you have presented a budget that is pretty significantly down from what I would call when I first got in the Board of Finance. And pretty much less than the DIRG average. And I created a roadmap. I call it a roadmap. I've used that term in the past. Vince knows that. And I think that there's an opportunity that exists for the Orange BOE consistent with historical norms and DRG schools to save money for the taxpayers. That's my opinion. Now, you can also see what's been happening in our neighboring town of Woodbridge. Kevin did a recent research less than 2 years ago about their average, and I'll just say it was 20 plus. Right, Kev? I think that's a fair statement. Okay? So I just wanted you to know, we've been coming to Orange for 40 years. It's not just class size. Okay? If there was a need, I'd come over here and teach myself and help out. You know that. And so I just want you to consider that. Now, I'm not going to get into it's right there, okay? And that's not what I'm here for. But I will tell you, because I'm going to supply these slides, I went through and gave it a look. Just to not say I'm going to, because I did give it a detailed look, but I'm not going to say this is what you should do. But I believe that there's opportunities there. An opportunity, option one, I'll say an opportunity, option two. All right? And that's what I did in preparing for tonight's meeting, besides going through the data and that kind of thing. So even my members of the board, my board, they didn't authorize this. This is my opinion. Okay? And I just wanted to share that all with you. So, in my mind, to sum it up, prudent government spending is its own reward. It's just like around the house. It's a highly tangible objective to strive for. Like I mentioned earlier, we got to be thinking about every line item like it's something back in the kitchen, right, in your own home. Orange and Amity have had excellent and deserved educational reputations for decades. All budget components, the Orange BOE, Amity Town of Orange, need to be mindful of their impact on taxpayers. I've been trying to champion this with some articles using data and facts. And finally, the one I sent you, or I believe a roadmap exists for the OBOE consistent with the more historical Orange norms, what's going on in other schools and towns, and to save money for the taxpayers. And with that, I don't anticipate any questions, but I'd be happy to answer any. Oh, this is just my next article. Sorry.
Okay, all right, thanks, Jim. Vince, Christine, Mike, thank you very much. And Vince and I, Jim, just said you were here the other day. We talked through this process. I'd like to express my appreciation. I can't turn around, my back will throw out, to your board and on all the hard work you've done, because the one thing, since we've been working together, since you've been here, is you don't come in and say, I need 8 or 9%, like some other people do. You work it, your board works hard, your finance committee works hard, and we appreciate it. So, thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
And thanks, and we'll talk about the capital lists and see
Sure.
what we could do there, but.
No, and again, I'd like to reciprocate that, Mr. Hillen. We really appreciate it. It's nice to have the collaboration, and as you said, it doesn't happen everywhere. And so we thank all of you, and we do appreciate the taxpayers very much so. That is definitely in our forward thinking of what we do every year. But again, appreciate everything you've done for our students.
And your board, your teachers, the administration the last 2 years, and we said this last year, you guys kept going when other districts were closed, and it's tremendous, because I have clients in other districts, and the horror stories I'm hearing, the problems with some of these kids because of what they've gone through and not been there, it's pretty sad.
We have much to be grateful for.
You might have much to be grateful for, but one of the things that makes a difference in this country, and it's going to start showing in the next very few couple of years, is leadership. You have to say, this is what we're going to, somebody in a leadership position has to be saying this. Members of the board, the leaders of the board, the leaders of the administration. Without leadership, it's not going to happen. It happened. And the accolades couldn't be sung high enough for the effort you did during those times. That's no kidding.
And I appreciate you acknowledging leadership, but I can't do it with everyone here. Anyone watching at home, the support of our teachers and staff and our parents. So I appreciate you acknowledging, but you could lead, but if you don't, if you don't have anyone following you to lead, then it causes a problem. So the accolades goes to everyone.
Thank you again. And we have to continue our meeting, but I would like to
Take a break.
have,
All
yes.
right, motion to take a break.
5 minutes.
All right. Aye, yeah.
Okay, we're back in session at 9:20. Our next item on the agenda is just budget discussion. And Jim, did you have
I have a couple of
Something-
slides. Let me just get rid of them so you guys can see them while you're finishing off your sandwich. I tell you what, if only all of the Orange Board of Finance meetings were with the Orange Board of Education, we'd be eating large, Joe. I mean, sandwiches, everything. I have submitted another article to the Orangetown News. There were 4 questions that I primarily got among a lot of them, one of which was the things that Amity surplus, what is the tax cost of that? And we shared it last time. There was a little bit of a refinement in the number, or actually, the number I used for the article is similar to this structure here, but the actual budget was 71.1, which rose the percentage up from like 2.08, it says 2.1 here, 2.13. I did this with other members of the Orange Board of Finance and just leave it at that. So that's one of the things, just to give an idea. I know it's an imperfect analysis, but certainly for a one-year analysis, I believe it's accurate, right? Then we could talk about what happens when the money comes back in, if it comes in its entirety. But a 4-year cost would be, on an average, about 100, actually the number's 174, but let's just say $170 for that first year. And if it, to give the simplest explanation, times it by 4, that's what you're talking about. A real number up in the 600 range, 650 to 700 range. That's the first item I wrote about. Second thing I wrote about, and I also included Woodbridge in this, since I've learned from feedback that there's a number of Facebook moms of Orange, Bethany, Woodbridge, that type of thing, combined. It's a private group, so you and I, Joe, can't get in. Deb, you could get in, that type of thing. And what I did is I put down the 4.92 proposed increase, the Amity Finance Committee 3.99, and what we have presented, all right, it's kind of what we supported. So when I wrote the article, I said, have been presented / supported to get the 0.41 in. And what the impact of the budget would be, and then what the impact to us would be. So the impact for us would be $211,000 if it was a 41/100th of an increase, and to Woodbridge it would be $318 dollars. So that's the deal. And the reason that these percentages are different than the overall percentage increases is because there's 2 other variables that's buried within them. There's student shift in population. Both Woodbridge and Orange are going up, even though the actual numbers are declining. And there is a decline from last year's other revenue, aggregate column, Kev, to this year's other revenue, which means it has to be filled up by the towns. All right, so that's what I have. Then I did, there seems to be, how come they need such a large increase? So I didn't write all of this, but it was a slide that I had used before, so I said, I'll just put this up there to show you guys that in the article, I've given you the article, I'm going to send it to you. Hopefully, Joe, I'll be able to correct that unnecessary misspelling. But that's the deal. And finally, and this is the most interesting one, what do we have as information about this surplus? What do we have as information about this surplus when our elected officials actually vote on the next year's budget? In other words, what's the surplus at that point in time? So it went back over a 5-year period. You can see the colors, all right, identified. And you can see that at the end of January, maybe you have the February data, not on February 28th you didn't. No. But when you have the next date of decision, which is Amity on the 14th, which is a week from today, all right, they might have the February data, okay? But this is the data they have in front of them about what's happening in the current year budget.
Before I switch to the surplus up top,
Um,
we gotta fix the edit.
All right, thanks, Joe. Joe, I'm sending everything to you before we send it out. So that means that's also going to be in the article, Joe.
That's it, we're done.
Violations all over the place. So here's what you can see, and now you can see the February and March data. Now, the reason I mentioned March is that when you have the March, that doesn't come out till second week of April. So if you're gonna vote on this in the first week of May, you only have the March data, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So there's the February data as well, again, over the last 5 years. So then I said to myself, well, we all know what happens, because the surpluses in the last 5 years, 4 years, have been $3 million a year. And they triple after all the voting is completed. Triple. They go from 30% of the total at March, if you add up the 4 columns, I've done it, and then, so it's actually more than triple, 3 1/3 times at the end of the year. So to me, this is worthy for people to understand that this is the facts out there, and that's most of the article. And all the misspellings and other analysis that are wrong is my problem. But anyway, that's what I have, Kev. Thank you.
John, do you have anything new before our next meeting?
Will you turn my phone?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
John, is there anything?
I have those 2 files, John, if you
Yeah,
want.
want to put up the,
Sure.
and I didn't send this out to everybody today because I finished it late and I just sent it to Jim.
Okay, so here we are, Joe.
One is our expense file, one is our
Revenue and
revenue
budget.
file.
Here's the budget. Okay, and we can
Go
give a
down the bottom,
boost.
go down the bottom of that, I think it's that one. Okay, yep, keep going, a little more. Okay, I went back over the numbers and I plugged in the numbers where we are without taking anything out, using the, nope, keep going down. Nope, I want to see the yellow, right there.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Using now the good board education number we have. If you look at the difference between revenue and expenses, we're at $195,000 within breaking even. I could cut $195,000 out of our budget tonight and get us even with no tax increase, if that's what you want to do. We wouldn't have to pull anything out of either budget, put it in capital, and then not be able to fund some of those older Oakenquist requests. It would be a pure budget. It does include in the revenue the $700,000 from the state of Connecticut for the car taxes at the mill rate of 29 for the cars, but it keeps the other mill rate where it is. But it's up to you guys.
Well, I don't want to make a decision on that right now.
No,
I
I'm
think we
just-
need a workshop to go through stuff and,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean,
things should be caught in certain areas. We have to talk about that and,
you know,
We're all in favor of keeping a flat mill rate.
Or reduce it, sure, or reduce it, or reduce it.
I am not.
I mean, just off the top, going through, I've identified about $150,000 in our budget that could be moved to capital. Actually, it's lower because I put in both sides of the munis. So it's 42.5 on our side of munis and 42.5 on the Board of Ed side. And then in our budget, to take out of the budget, I've identified about $200,000 worth of stuff, starting with $108,000 for police cars. There's gonna be enough money in salaries again this year that we can encumber the money to do that. There was a salary for the HVAC guy in the Public Works that's coming out because that hasn't gone before the Personnel Committee. They went up $35,000 on streets and bridges. We could take that out. In community center
we
building.
probably have to think about
R&M.
that. Because, you know,
Yeah,
to maintain the roads and stuff.
Right.
If we're like this, I think we'd want to do that, but.
but all we have to do is take out the 2 police cars, the salary for the HV mechanic, and the munis and put it in thing, and we're right there where we need to be. We're balanced.
What was the grand list again, John? What did it grow by?
5%.
5%.
Yeah, a little over 5%.
Were you Well, here's gonna be another country heard from.
And if Amity, going back to the Jim's Amity slide, if by some chance they do cut their budget to 3.99, that's what, another $100,000 or so to Orange?
And in the
So
revenue
that
side,
could then,
in the revenue budget, is there a number in there for Amity or no?
no number for Amity, no number from the fund balance.
Well, we're not gonna use fund balance, because we're not gonna have to, but we're assuming no Amity refund.
Right.
You took the 850 out. Is that what it was last year?
Last year, right.
My opinion,
So those are-
You're able to take it out because the grand list grew by 5%.
Well, they don't have, their numbers don't show a surplus right now either. All in, yeah, all in.
Not right now, but they're gonna have one.
John.
Well, they
what
already
was I
moved the
showing?
491.
In the past, they've always showed it, and that's what we've used to do it. So you guys are gonna have to make, that's not my decision, that's your
Right,
decision.
but here's where I'm at. It is one of the rarest things in this earth that we have gotten a 5% grand list increase. No one, in my judgment, should think we're doing a good job if somehow we have a flat mill rate. That's crazy.
No, we have the opportunity to reduce it.
And that's what this analysis was trying to do. Now, I realize that what you really have to do, John, is we have to take, there has to be a revenue file, right? An expense file, and that's what we were just looking at, right? And I know you have this data on the bottom. But what you gave us and what I created this the last time, but I'll just walk you through it. And it was me trying to back of the envelope, trying to get things in my head straight. The mill rate analysis for last year at the mills, this is what we got, 69 at the mill rate of 33.25. You have already given us this mill rate analysis of what we'll get if we kept it that way.
With the car taxes going down to 29,
The car tax, I believe, is right here.
that's the money coming from the state to make up the 29
Correct.
to the 33.
So I subtract, well, like I'm doing major league misspellings apparently, I could make major league errors too. This here is just the difference of those two, okay? This here is an add, I just plugged it in. This is the top of those two, so it's these, this, and this. So this, to me, is if you kept it the same, would mean that we could cover 3.8 million in increase, right? But to me, logically, if we get a 5% increase, we should be giving 3% of that 5 back to the taxpayers. They're our constituents too. It's not just who comes and asks for money. That's my opinion anyway. So I was trying to get a handle on it, Kev. So the value of 1 mil right off the sheet, from your sheet, John, since you had calculated this, would be, okay, that's a mil. So I said, well, what's the potential mill rate reduction if everything was flat, right? So it was 1.73. It could be a 5% mill rate reduction, all right? If we could keep everything flat, but
We can't.
we can't. So I was over here, so at that moment in time, we had, and I didn't have the other revenue chart that you've alluded to, John, okay? So I had assumed, I guess I made the assumption the other revenue was equal to last year, all right? I was just, this was just that day, it was like 2 weeks ago. So I said, okay, first cut out of the box was these for OBOE, if it was still the same, from Amity, all right? They're already talking about getting it down as they should, and the town. I said, then what if they could get it down? I just did a what if, that's all. That's why I called this file, it's called a what if. And I said, what if this could come down to $1 million? What if this could come down by 300? What if this could come down by 250? And this stay the same. And then I said, okay, now this would have to be covered by this 3.8. So what I did over here on the left is I said, okay, the blue, the first draft budgets, we could still get a mill rate reduction of 122. Assuming, Kev, your other revenue, non-mill was equal. Big assumption, got it. But I said, what happens if we could get it down to 1 May increase? Which would, this starts to feel to me, as Joe Blow taxpayer, if we have a 5.5% increase in our mill rate, when we usually have like well under 1%, there should be something going back. I mean, I don't think we're sharpening our pencils enough if we did. Anyway, that's the pink analysis, I'll call it. All right, because you said, okay, there's your much. So how much is left of that yellow upstairs, right? So this 2 million, Kev, is just the yellow and then subtract off this, right? And then I said, okay, well, how much of a mill rate would that be? And this, as a ratio of that, would be 0.91, right? And then you just subtract 0.91 from our current mill rate of 33.25. And then what is it as a reduction? And then over here, I just did a quick and dirty analysis. How much would that mean they would save on average? Okay? What if and they're all linked, so you change one number and we can change them all. What's not up here is the other revenue, which could be, we made big assumptions about fund balance last year, right? How much back from Amity last year, and whatever else was in last year's other revenue cap. Okay? But for me, whatever those numbers turn out to be, whatever these budgets turn out to be, and we make them, I think we have to have bigger sights to set for ourselves than, you know, I think it's gotta be, we gotta take
We
a.
gotta come more than 195,000.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, Kevin says we gotta do a workshop on it. And he's-
Yeah, I think that's what we do.
Oh, yeah,
We
absolutely.
meet at 7 and we just hammer
Just
out everything.
keep going, and we
We've done that.
and we save
Done it every
another
year.
2, we have a 3-hour meeting, and then we save a 90-minute meeting for cleanup. So that gets us to path forward and scheduling.
That's our next item, yes.
Here we go.
We gotta set up our next meeting.
So here we are.
When is our next meeting? Do we have one on the schedule, John?
Yeah,
You have your regular meeting on the.
21st, I think it is.
Yeah, 21st.
Really long term, too. 3 to 5 years, we gotta be more grand list, let's try to keep everything under control. Yeah, right, we can't, let's not spend it.
No. And to me,
3 to 5 years out, let's
There's-
keep everything.
I have two thoughts, and, you know, there's 6 of us. One is exactly what Jim said. The other is if you don't give a tax cut, which we should,
Capital or something.
it's going to one-time stuff to fix up things that we need to fix, and it's not going to just, oh, Joe came to me, and since we have this mill rate, this, you know, grand list increase, he's gonna get all his money this year. And then next year,
That's
hey,
right. That's what I want to avoid.
next year be negative 5%, because that's what we don't want, in my opinion, we don't wanna do.
Yep. That
So
would be.
it's a hard look at where we are, possible tax cut, or, you know,
Or balance.
balance with the capital roads or whatever, you know, there's things out there. Maybe we could do both. You know, maybe it's not as big of a number, but it's something, and then the other part goes towards roads or
Yeah,
some other things.
because we have to look at what we have for budgets, how to keep, you know,
If you put
do more
the
with
budgets-
less, then what's in there that we can put in capital,
Yeah.
right? And then how much capital can we afford, given our fund balance,
Right.
right? And how much we're willing to, you know, do there, right? And then whatever comes out the other side on the budgets translates into how does that fix out to a 1-year tax increase or rebate, which I think is pretty obvious. There should be something.
If we look back at the last 10 years of our budgeting process, the budgets have gone up and up and up. I mean, it's gone up a significant amount the last 10 years. So I'm not sure how we control
It
that.
hasn't gone up as much as you think, because Jim's done analysis of the budget
I mean, down
increases.
percentage-wise over the last.
But it's gone up, and one of the biggest driving factors is those $3 million surpluses.
Yeah,
We overpaid $1.5 million a year.
right.
You know, we got it back and
Yeah.
it went to capital, so, not all of it, like, they kept 500,000-600,000 last year, the surplus year, but,
Well, it was the year
But-
before, they spent $1.3 million,
yes.
right?
Yes,
You know, and, you know, all indications from, I hear from the superintendent Byers, is she's flipping her chops to not just get 1% of the budget, but 2% of the budget.
Yep.
Try to
Well, wait a
figure-
minute, if you already know that in December, and January, when you're talking to us, you know, you must know the $1 million there. I mean, right, I mean, come on.
Right.
No, and so, but our next meeting is the 21st?
I would like to make a proposal regarding that meeting.
Okay.
I want to have whatever's going to be presented. First of all, I would like a report out of what their Excel document, right, that we approved.
Whose?
Uh,
Amity's?
No.
Oh.
Dr. Muhammad and,
Oh, because that's when he's coming.
that's right. But what I was saying from a process perspective, a report out on what's the status of the money, of that money spent, what you spent it on. All right? What you did in activities, because at the time, I thought, like, next week, they were gonna start these clinics.
Yeah.
Now, if that's not the case, fine, but
They
what
have.
have you done? I want that in a document I can see in advance, and when we report out, you report out to the document. I don't want it going off on tangents or handing out, any document anybody can hand out, I want that as a document in advance, and I want to have it in electronically so we can talk about it on the screen. This idea of everybody running around the room talking about, here, have a copy, none of that. That's not an effective meeting.
How much time do you think we'll need with him?
Half hour,
Yeah, I agree.
that's it, come on.
What's the objective with that?
Personally, with what's going on, we're all sitting in this room, nobody's wearing a mask, hopefully we're all healthy. I don't think we fund the second half of it. That's my opinion.
At least not at this time.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sure.
I agree. I mean, I think COVID's on the way out. It's under 2%.
I hope it is, but,
Yeah, we're hoping.
but I think, you know, there's testing sites that have been open the whole time. There's one in South Carolina near my mother. It's been open for free testing all the time. It's closing tomorrow. It's over. Like, it is South Carolina. They
Most
act a
people
little
have caught the
differently.
virus
But,
and or been
but
vaccinated at
they've
this
had
point.
this facility open the whole time, free testing in a park where they have medical staff, booster shots, and they're shutting it down tomorrow.
I mean, hopefully this thing just becomes like the flu.
Yeah.
Right.
Like in the wintertime, you
Right.
just gotta get your shot.
Right, right.
Hopefully that's it.
But right now, I don't know what the numbers were that if he had one or two clinics.
That I know of.
And, you know, I just
When did we see
still
him,
go to
John?
CVS,
Back in December,
Walgreens,
was
and
it?
anywhere else right now.
We have to
get
pre-buy
your-
the shots and hold them in,
Oh, yeah,
you gotta be careful you don't waste them.
They gotta be frozen.
You know, be careful you don't waste them.
Might have been December or January,
When he came in, I
yeah.
Okay, here it is.
think it was December.
It was December.
Whoa. At
Yeah,
least-
because it was Ajit's first meeting,
Okay,
and we talked for 3 hours on $42,000.
I want a report out on this, what we approved. That's what I want.
Well, I could give you that, because it's gotta go through,
It's gotta go through John.
yeah.
No, I want to, remember, a report out on what got spent and the activities they spent it on. And I don't want that from you, John, even if you know it. I want that from who's ever in charge
Well,
of it.
he's,
You're not in
he's gotta
charge of it.
get, he's gotta
John's
get
gonna
it
give him
from
numbers,
me.
He's gonna give him the color.
But
Is
how
there
many
any
people
waste,
came
John?
through the
Has there any
doors?
waste?
All that stuff, you can, that's how you know, when people report out, you learn an awful lot about who's reporting it out as well as the what.
Is he experiencing any waste with these shots? We don't wanna lose money on these things.
You know, I believe, I pointed to a lady who was sitting right over there from the meeting that we were at the other time. I would like to see a connection between the names you collect and that lady who said she could process us.
Reimbursements.
Do you remember who that one was, John?
Yeah, that was Anna Saldemarco
Okay,
and Lisa Pimenta, that was the two of
okay,
them.
good. We would like them at the meeting. I want to see the same faces that we saw last time so that we can recreate what happened in that meeting and report out on, we gave you money, tell us what you did with it and how much you spent.
And Kevin, do we want to wait 2 weeks? Like if we want to discontinue, we can. So Kevin, what I suggest is like, do we want to wait or do we want to inform him now that we won't be funding the second part of the pilot?
Oh, we have to give him a chance.
Yeah, you gotta tell them at the meeting.
You have to listen to his
See, the
presentation.
demand is.
No, I mean, if it is
going
not
down.
required based on COVID rates and other things.
I think we owe him the courtesy of making the
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah,
We'll give them a half hour.
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I was just, I didn't know, I was, when I said, what's the objective? Because, anybody can come in and, sort of kind of like a maybe.
You can
and
change
then,
our minds, you
2
can have
hours go
data,
by.
but I, just from what I see in the world around me,
Yep,
in my world, I don't
You
I don't see the need to spend the money,
yeah.
but
So that gets to your question of time that we'll need, and then that gets back to the calendar. And we're talking about, I'm out of, John, you need this all done by the end of March, right?
Right.
All right? I've already made plans to get out of Dodge and come back around the 18th. And by then, maybe Kevin will have survived, and I can
I'll be
prepare
dead.
for the town budget hearing, okay? But I can take my computer and I'll be online, I can do whatever we need to do, but I'm going to visit family.
so if we start that meeting at 7, wrap up with the Department of Health at 7:30, we could get a couple hours in that night, see where we land, and if we have to meet John,
Let's take a stab at when that next night would be.
I would,
Well, the big thing is gonna be March 14th. What comes out of the March 14th meeting with Amity too. Because then we have a plug number.
yeah, then we have a more solid number than we do now.
Well,
So then we have that for the 21st. We have Department of Health. We see where we land, and if we need to meet again that week or the following Monday,
it can't be a Tuesday or Thursday, because Ajit's out.
yep,
So the proposal could be Wednesday, or, pick a Wednesday,
it could be Wednesday or it could.
or the following Monday.
Yeah,
So there are your dates, 23, 20, and again, we're just doing first cut.
Yeah, yeah.
First cut. 23, 28, or 30. Pick one. I'd say stay away from
Don't
30.
wanna meet next week.
I said 28.
Just keep saying on Monday.
March
Keep it
14th?
consistent on Monday.
Absolutely not.
No,
Definitely.
like the 16th.
Oh, you want to try to punch it in on the 16th?
I don't.
Okay. All right, I'll put the thing in here, we can
Go to 28th.
put the ball where we're at, 28?
That's
We
good.
have a
Keep the
opening
Mondays-
bid.
keep the Mondays
Opening
the same.
bid.
Yeah, that's good.
Keep it fair, Joey. We good?
Good.
Okay, so we're gonna meet on the 28th as well as the 21st. We're gonna have a half-hour presentation on the 21st from, follow-up from December. Have a full report out on money spent and activities accomplished, and whatever else needs to be said and decided. Then we'll go into a budget workshop. Is that what it will be, Kevin?
Yes.
Will we need OGAT on the budget workshop, or no?
I don't think so, but it's up to you, I don't know.
I would prefer them not to,
You're
Yeah, I
gonna
don't
kick
think
them out
we
though.
need to go get.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll talk about it.
okay, you and John figure it out. All right, so here we are on the 7th.
Number 7, we need to table this to our next meeting because we don't, I thought I didn't print the minutes, but we don't have the minutes, so.
I sent the same note to John.
Make a motion to table.
Motion by Kevin, is there a second?
Aye.
Second by Joe. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay,
Passed. Table to the next meeting.
What I'll do at our next meeting, I'll put all 3 of them on and I'll put them in front of Dr. Mohammed. So then if you don't have OGAT for the rest of the meeting, at least that's on the tape,
Okay.
I think that's a good strategy.
okay?
So Chris OGAT will be on for the first part of that meeting on the 21st,
Of April? Or?
No, March.
March.
Okay.
Actually,
So we did that last year,
There'll be
because
a
then we ended
short-
up walking around the room with yelling at things. It makes
Actually,
it,
handing stuff out, man.
If there's anything other than the budget thing, there may be a request for funding also.
Oh, we'll fit that in,
We'll put that right at the beginning.
at the front
too,
part. Well,
before-
A and a B,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Either before or after.
Roger
Dr.
that.
Mohammed.
okay.
All right, good meeting. I'll send you guys out these slides.
All right,
I'll
old
try to-
business, we've talked about
I
it.
don't know what to say about the spelling, Joe.
Orange Board of Health, so we're done with that.
I mean, seventh grade is gonna be better
there a
than this.
motion
I
to
can hear the
adjourn?
kids now.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by
Content's
Ajit.
good,
All
Jim.
those in
Always
favor?
is. It's
Yeah,
okay.
all good.
It's all
Thank you.
good.
Meeting adjourned at 9:50.
Say,
Thank you.
good.